If you're a child or a young person or a student or a parent, we need you. There are things that you can be doing right now to make a difference to address the unfairness that has existed for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children for hundreds of years. You can get onto Facebook, you can find our various campaigns, 7 free ways to make a difference in under 2 minutes on Facebook, on our web pages. You can sign up, get your friends to sign up, and you can take some of the actions that I'm about to talk to you about inspiring children and young people just like you, who have truly changed the world for the better. You know, a lot of people say, it's so easy that even a child can get it. But in this case, children already get it. They know it's not fair for First Nations children to get less education, to get bad schools, to not get a chance to live safely in their families, to not get good health care simply because who they are. You know, a non-Aboriginal girl wrote a letter recently, and she wrote to the Prime Minister, and she said, "Dear Prime Minister, is the only reason I get a good school and I can be healthy, I get doctors that care about me, and I also don't have to go, I can live with my family and don't have to go into child welfare, is because I'm non-Aboriginal?" I mean, she totally understands it. It's simply not fair for children to get less because of who they are, something that they should not change and should not be asked to change. So we've had so many kids who have been absolutely inspirational, not just in terms of understanding the discrimination, but putting boots to the ground to actually make a change. And I'd like to share with you just 3 stories. The first one is Wesley Prankert, and he has a 12-year-old boy from Niagara Falls. And his father had been up to Attawapiskat and comes back and shares with him at the dinner table some of the stories about this horrible school that is contaminated by 30,000 gallons of diesel. The fact that some homes don't have water or sewer or even heat in a very cold climate. And he says to himself, well, this isn't right. He thinks about the 4 playgrounds that are in his community just within a block of where he lives. And he says, well, if I've got all these things, then why don't they have those things? And he learned from his dad that the kids in Attawapiskat didn't have a playground. So what he does is he says, you know what, it's kind of cold in the spring, but I'm going to take my tent out to the campground and I'm going to have a campathon. So people can pledge dollars for every hour that I'm out there in the tent. And I'm going to have my computer there so I can log on to Facebook and tell my friends that they can donate. And my dad will stay there with me. So he does that, and then he enters the Pepsi Refresh project, and he won a $25,000 prize to build a playground in Attawapiskat. This young 12-year-old has raised over $40,000 for playgrounds in First Nations communities. Now, you might think I don't have all the time that Wesley does, but I think you got the time that Clara does. Clara is a beautiful non-Aboriginal girl, and she lives in Toronto. And she heard that First Nations children don't get proper schools. And even when they get a proper school, they get less funding for teachers and books and things. So she thought, you know, the one thing I can do is I can write to the people who can change that, the Prime Minister of Canada, and say that, you know, these kids deserve a chance too. So she gets out her best stationery and she writes, "Dear Prime Minister, these are the things I did in school today. And I don't understand why First Nations kids don't get the same chance to learn that I do." And puts it in the mail. And she wonders if he's going to write back. But one day, finally, the letter arrives. And it's in a bigger envelope than what she expected. But she opens it up, and inside is a 4x6 autographed glossy photograph of Prime Minister Harper. And no answer to her question. So she doesn't think this is okay. So she takes it to her class and she said, you know, I wrote this letter to the Prime Minister and all he did is send me a letter and saying that he was glad to hear from young people and a picture of himself. What I really wanted to know is why First Nations kids don't get a proper education. So all 32 kids in that classroom took action and wrote letters to the Prime Minister demanding an answer to the same question that Clara got. And what about groups of kids in the classroom? Well, just a couple weeks ago, over 500 Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal children walked together with letters in hand to the Prime Minister to say that First Nations children should be treated in the same respectful ways as non-Aboriginal kids. They shouldn't get less because of who they are. And these kids actually, they made handmade banners. They went onto our websites and printed off some of the posters and all the buttons that you can get free online. And they also made a school out of paper mache, and they put it on a radio flyer red wagon, and they towed it up to Parliament Hill, and they read out their letters to the government of Canada saying that, you know, we loved this country. Many of them said, I'm a young child, and I want to grow up in a place where every child is valued, that nobody gets less because of who they are. That's what I thought this country belonged to. That's the kind of country I want to grow up in. That's the kind of example you're supposed to be setting for me as a leader. Well, we don't know if the Prime Minister is going to write back to these 500 children, but I hope he does, because that's a true spirit of democracy. And I can't speak enough about the thousands of children who have supported Jordan's principle by talking about it in their classrooms and writing to their premiers and their Prime Minister to say that this is important, that no child should be told no or hold on, you don't get a service because of your race. Or the thousands of kids who have supported the I Am a Witness program and even came personally to sit in a courtroom to watch the government of Canada argue and say why it's giving First Nations kids less in child welfare. So you can make a difference. Go onto these websites. You're going to see children and young people just like yourself who are taking leadership in this country and truly making a difference. And I am so very grateful. And on behalf of all First Nations people in the country, we are so grateful to you, and we are so thankful that you are taking action to make a difference when you can.